Hello everyone, welcome back. In the previous module, we learned about different types of commands in MySQL, like we learned about DDL commands, DML, DCL, and TCL. Now in this module, we'll learn different data types available in MySQL. So before we jump in to understand data types, we need to know why we have to learn about data types and what is the role of data types in MySQL. So let's get started. Now, when you're working for enterprise application, let's take you're working for Amazon. Now, you might need to store different types of data. For example, you want to store details of employees, you want to store details of customers or products, you want to store details of products, or you might want to store details of sellers. So you have to store details of different entities like employees details, customer details, product details, seller details, order details, lot of things. Now let's take the first example of I want to store product details. So when you talk about products, you might want to store product ID and product name, price, model, make, manufacturing date. All these details you might need to store, which you want to display in the products page so that customer will make his wish, right? Now these details, all these details are different data types, are not of the same data. That what I mean is, now, product ID can be an integer. Product name can be a sequence of characters. Price can be a decimal, like 20.5, 50.5, whatever. Model will be a sequence of characters. Make also will be a sequence of characters. And manufacturing date will be a date. So here, if you see, we have in this table itself, we have number, we have sequence of characters, we have a decimal number, we have a date. So you need to know when you're creating a table, like for product, when I create a product table, I need to give these are columns, product ID, product name are columns. So I need to mention what data type it's going to store. So that is the reason why you have to learn about data types. So we have different data types like integer, we have a string. I mean, we're going to see all those data types now. So the reason why you have to learn about data types is to understand when you're creating a table appropriately, you can decide on what type of data the column is going to store. So with that understanding, let's jump in and try to understand different data types. Let's get started. Now we just learned about why you have to learn about data types, and let's see what are the data types in MySQL. Now, for storing numeric values, we have tinyInt, which is like a very small value. Like let's take you want to store age of a person. Age of a person, you might want to store maybe maximum 100 or maybe lucky or unlucky 110. So tinyInt will actually store very small integer values, and small int will store little bigger values than tinyInt. Medium int is bigger than a small int. Integer will take 4 bytes of data and store bigger than a medium int. And big int is the largest number which you can store. If you want to store large integer numbers, you go for big int. And remember, so when you say integers, it will not have decimal values. Now let's try to understand once again, and let's see this. Now, all these four are used to store integers. So tinyInt, integer means like without decimals. TinyInt is a smaller value, small int is a little bigger than tinyInt, and tinyInt takes 1 byte of memory, and small int takes 2 bytes of memory, and medium int takes 3 bytes of memory, and integer takes 4 bytes of memory, and big int takes 8 bytes of memory. Now let's take I want to store age of a person. So age of a person is a small number, so I can actually go with tinyInt, or I can also go with big integer. Big integer is you can store large numbers, but if you really want to store age of a person, you don't have to really go for big integer. TinyInt will do, because age in 1 byte you can store small numbers. And if you want to know more about these data types and range, you can pause the video and scan this, and that'll take you to MySQL documentation, and you can understand more about that. So now, now these are data types once again. So tinyInt, small int, medium int, integer, and big int. And then we have Boolean or bool, which is used to store true or false. 0 indicates false. Anything else is considered as true. So Boolean. And then we have decimal, float, double. Now let's talk about decimal, float, double. I'll just talk about decimal now. You'll understand now. Now, if you see here, when I declare a data type of decimal 5, 2, so this is how we declare. So 5 indicates the total number of digits, and 2 indicates the number of digits after decimal. So when I declare as decimal 5, 2, it can store the values from minus 999.99. So total number of digits are 5, and after decimal it can store 2. That's the meaning of 5 comma 2. Now let's take when I explain 4 comma 2 decimal 4 comma 2, when I mention like this, so it can store from values minus 99.99, so point here 2, so total is 4 digits, and after decimal 2 digits, and it can store from up to 99.99. so that's the meaning of decimal 4 comma 2. So that's how you have to declare. And when you declare only decimal 5 without this smaller value, so that means when you don't declare it, it can only store the integer values. It cannot store anything after decimal. Okay. So we just learned about integers. These are 5 integers that we have. Boolean for true or false. 0 indicates false, and anything else other than 0 is considered true. And decimal, float, double. So we don't have to really worry about float and double right now. So decimal will take 2 parameters here, and that will store decimal values. So that's about numeric types. And let's see the next one. Now, if you want to store a sequence of characters, we have 2 data types, char and varchar. So now let's take, for example, to understand char and varchar, let's take simple example. Now I want to store zip code. Now let's take it's a fixed size of 5 characters or 6 characters. Now I can actually declare char of 6. Now if you want to store fixed size data, go for char. And if you want to store varying size data, for example, if I go for names of persons, my name will have like 16, 17 characters. Someone else's name will have 10 characters. Someone else's name will have 12 characters. So in that case, you have to go for varchar of 30 or whatever, right? So this number indicates the maximum number of characters it can store. So varchar is used to store varying size data. Char is used to store fixed type of data. Now, for example, once again, some more example of char. So you want to store zip code, you want to store SSN number, or you want to store a mobile number which has fixed size. So these data types require char. And if you want to store names of persons or names of countries or anything that's varying size, you have to go for varchar. So we'll talk about more about these 2 data types as we proceed further with this course. And for now, let's try to understand the last one, which is date and time. Now, when you deal with, let's take you are storing employees details, you might need to store date of joining of employee, punch in punch time of employee. So you need to store different values of related to date. So in MySQL, we have date, which will store only the date. Time will store only the time. Date time will store date and time. Timestamp also stores date and time. For now, let's not worry about timestamp. We'll see that later. And year will store year. Okay. So these are different data types we have for storing date and time, so which is date, time, date, time, and year. So just to summarize, we have learned about numeric data types. Here we have tiny int, small int, medium int, integer, int and integer both are same, big int, and bit we didn't discuss about it. Let's not worry about it here. And Boolean will store true or false. 0 indicates false, anything else is true. And decimal will have 2 parameters here like this. We discussed about it. Char for storing fixed size data, varchar for storing varying amount of data, varying size data, and date time are used to store date and time values, and year will store year, timestamp let's not worry about right now. So these are different types of data types in MySQL. In the next module, we're going to learn how to create database, how to create tables, and that's very important. In case if you think this data types is a little bit overwhelming for you, don't worry. You will easily understand as we proceed with the course. Thank you and see you in the next module.